I don't know if anyone anywhere on YouTube or in person has ever used this term before. If not, it's mine now. I am coining it. The camera consumer world on YouTube is full of not photographers, but photographers. That's right, because you're griping all the time about something. In this video, I'm going to prove a bunch of people wrong. Not only will I prove that Nikon is not the unaffordable option, as best I can, I will also provide the more affordable options that might be available. Maybe I'll prove you double or triple wrong. I regularly see people in comments of my and other photographers' videos say that Nikon lenses are too expensive, or they need affordable options, or Nikon lenses are just simply overpriced. Well, I agree that there needs to be even more affordable options, while at the same time, I can state that there are affordable options. Affordability is being defined by the individual, not the industry, and that is the issue with these photographers. Companies can't lose money on their products all the time. That's where third party comes in. There are even more affordable options out there, but the lenses you want just aren't affordable to you, and that's okay. The real reason I'm here today is to make a video that I can link to every person who accuses Nikon of being the worst of the bunch price-wise, because it's just factually not true. Not only does Nikon make some of, if not the best glass of the big three, that's Canon, Sony, and Nikon, it is in many cases the least expensive, or so close that you should just stop complaining. Today we are comparing the big three's offerings apples to apples on price. The lenses will be current production only, no old versions where prices have dropped, but really that kind of only applies to Sony, whose mirrorless system has been around long enough to have some version 2s. This video will cover MSRP prices as of the scripting of this video in late March 2025, and not any sales prices that may be going on. If you want to pick any of this up and I've provided value or entertainment today, check out the link in the description. I get a 2% commission if you do so. Let's cover the Trinity first. The Nikkor Z 14-24 f2.8s 2496.95. Sony FE 12-24 f2.8 GM 2998. Canon RF 15-35 f2.8L IS USM 2399. So Nikon is not the worst price. Sony is. Nikon is in second. Canon is the cheapest by $100. Interestingly enough, there is a more affordable option in all three brands. The Nikkor Z 14-30 f4S 1346.95. Sony 12-24 f4G 1773. Canon RF 14-35 f4 1399. Nikon wins. And there's a third option for Nikon that is an f2.8. The Nikkor Z 17-28 f2.8. It's probably Tamron made, but Nikon branded. It's $1196.95. So Nikon kind of wins twice. You're double wrong. I will add that Sony offering 12mm on the wide end is a big deal to some people. 12mm on the wide end is visually different than 14mm, and for those that need it, that's probably worth it even at those prices for those people. The Nikkor Z 24-70 f2.8s 2396.95. The Sony FE 24-70 f2.8 GM2 2298. The Canon, $23.99. Nikon isn't the worst again. Canon is. Sony wins this f2.8 price range by $100-ish bucks. Canon loses by $3. There are f4 versions in Nikon and Sony. Nikon's 24-70 f4S, $996.95, and the Sony FE 27-70 f4G. I don't know, I think I mistyped that. Sony's f4G offering is $1,098. So you're wrong. Just like with the wide zooms, there is a suspiciously Tamron-esque f2.8 for Nikon. It's a 28-75 f2.8 for $1196.95. Options, options, options. You're wrong. There's plenty of options in different price ranges. Now we can look at telephoto zoom. The Nikkor Z 70-200 f2.8s 2696.95. The Sony FE 70-200 f2.8 GM OSS2 2798. Canon RF 70-200 f2.8L IS USMZ and non-Z versions $2,999 and $2799. It looks like Nikon wins this one. There's also another, probably Tamron made but Nikon branded f2.8 version for $1,246. Sony and Canon have f4 options, which Sony's is actually a macro, which is actually pretty neat. It's $1,698 and Canon's f4 version is $1,599. On price, Nikon wins twice on the base model and other affordable option. Let's take a look at some prime lenses, starting with longer millimeter macro lenses. The Nikkor Z105 f2.8 VRS, $1,046.95. Sony FE 90mm f2.8 macro G OSS, $1,098. The Canon RF 100mm f2.8L macro IS USM, $11.99. You're wrong. Let's take a look at some premium f1.2 lenses, starting with 50mm. The Nikkor Z 50mm f1.2S, $2,096.95. The Sony FE 50mm f1.2 GM, $19.98. Canon RF 50mm f1.2L USM, $22.99. Little side note, I've tested all three of those, and Canon's is actually the worst optically. It's not bad, but they should be embarrassed that Sony beat them, because they've been doing lenses a lot longer. I'm not saying Canon's is bad, I'm just saying it's the worst of the three. Moving on. Now let's look at 85. Unfortunately, Sony doesn't even offer an f1.2 85mm lens, so it's just Canon and Nikon, the old school rivals. Canon actually has two lenses, a good one and a better one, I guess. Kidding, the more expensive version is labeled as a DS for defocus smoothing coating for softer bokeh. Canon RF 85mm f1.2L USM, $27.99. The Canon RF 85mm f1.2L USM DS, $3,099. The Nikkor Z 85mm f1.2S, $27.96.95. So you're wrong twice. Now things do get a little weird in regards to f1.8 lenses, and I think that if I'm going to give these photographers a little rope here, this may be where they are assuming Nikon is a big greedy monster on lens pricing. Let me break this down a little. For a long time now, f1.8 lenses have been your kind of standard prime lenses, the more affordable options, and f1.4s have been the more premium offering. Well, Sony and Canon have maintained that tradition, and Nikon is doing something a little different. Nikon launched f1.8 lenses when they first introduced the Z-mount, and they decided to make them S-line lenses. That means they throw all of the best coatings and lens designs into them. Later on, they would start introducing f1.4 lenses that are not S-line lenses. Wider aperture with sacrifices on other things like optics and performance. So comparing Nikon's S-line 1.8 primes to Sony and Canon really just isn't fair for Canon and Sony, because Canon and Sony are not trying to make premium prime lenses at f1.8. The only way I can imagine to compare these is to ignore aperture altogether and just compare S-line to Sony and Canon's premium offerings. And shocker, the prices are going to be very skewed, so take this with a grain of salt. I don't want Nikon users throwing a parade over this, nor do I want Sony and Canon users throwing fits because their premium f1.4s are more expensive than Nikon's. The fact is, Nikon's optical qualities from worst to best go f1.4, f1.8, and f1.2, while the competition goes the traditional route of f1.8, f1.4, f1.2. So let's just give it a go. The Nikkor Z 50mm f1.8S, $626.95. The Sony FE 50mm f1.4 GM, $12.98. Canon RF 50mm f1.4, $13.99. So you're wrong. The Nikkor Z 35 1.8S, $846.95. The Sony FE 35 1.4 GM, $13.98. And Canon's RF 35 f1.4 is $14.99. So you're wrong. In 85mm, you have the Nikkor Z 85mm f1.8S for $796.95. The Sony FE 85mm f1.4 GM2, $17.98. The GM1 version is $12.98. Canon does not offer an RF 85 f1.4 at the making of this video, so you're wrong. The Nikkor Z 24mm f1.8S, $996.95. The Sony FE 24mm f1.4 GM, $13.98. The Canon RF 24mm f1.4, $14.99. So you're wrong. Now, to continue in fairness, we will flip this and do Nikon's f1.4s, of which there are only two currently, which we now know are their less premium offering, and we will compare that to Canon and Sony's f1.8s, which are their less premium offering. The Nikkor Z 35mm f1.4, $596.95. The Sony FE 35mm f1.8. There's actually a couple. One is $748 and the other one is an OSS and it's $473. The Canon RF 35mm f1.8 macro IS STM $499. The Nikkor Z 50mm f1.4 $496.95. The Sony FE 50mm f1.8 $248 and the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM is $199. So what did we learn today? When you say Nikon has no affordable options, you're kind of wrong. They have plenty of options. When you say Nikon is outrageously priced or the unaffordable option, you're really wrong most of the time. It seems like the one you should be complaining about is Canon. Granted, L-series lenses are made in Japan, but that aside, and quality of optics aside, which I think Nikon wins also most of the time, opinion, because Nikon has some insanely beautiful glass. All that aside, you all started this argument based on price, and I settled it on price. Nikon is not just on optical quality per dollar, but dollar for dollar is an affordable option. I'm Z-Wade, the Z-Wade, and Z-Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.